Southside 457.
Did you know that the Southside on Lamar is a national historic building?
This building tells a story.
I need a story to connect to with my heart.
There are so many stories in this building.
I wanted to teach other people how to naturally love themselves, and so I ventured into the field of opening my own spa.
There are people in this building with a passion to share what they know.
When I share my knowledge and my skills and my gift, I'm serving my purpose.
Preachers, teachers, architects, attorneys, engineers, artists of all kinds in this building.
What makes this place tick to me and makes it exciting is the combination of so many different kinds of people.
It's like a melting pot.
It's like a melting pot.
15 years, I've never regretted being here at Southside.
Welcome to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr. Let's get it on. You can't miss the princess.
Listen, Linda, listen.
Southside 457.
Welcome to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson, and I am here with the world famous Rolando Diaz, artist, painter, musician, documentarian, and keep going.
Man, I'm going to get you to introduce me at any event that I do. That's the most amazing introduction I've ever heard. And just to make it clear, I'm definitely not worried out. I'm an international acclaimed painter, which is a big difference. I'm not Picasso, but thank you so much. Appreciate you, Walter. It's good to be here, man.
So, Rolando, Ro is what we call you.
Yeah, Ro's good.
So, this podcast is about just capturing different people and unique individuals here in the building who's been here at the Southside on Lamar for, like you've been here for a long time. Mm-hmm. And, this building is unique and historic, and I just feel like it's time to capture some of the uniqueness, people, the unique individuals that live here, work here. And you're one of the people I just wanted to reach out to and just, you got a lot of history. You've been here for how long?
I've been 23 years now.
23 years. Mm-hmm. So tell everybody like what it is that you do and how you ended up at the Southside.
So I'm a Cuban-American abstract expressionist. I'm a fine artist. I mostly paint. I've delved into sculpture some, but I consider myself a painter. So I've been fortunate. I've had a great career, and I'm an international acclaimed painter. And, I've been able to do things in different countries and different places. And then because PBS did a documentary of my life, that aired in the United States, Russia, Canada, and Puerto Rico, then that opened up a much wider variety of awareness besides the U.S. But I'm a painter. Yeah.
So you have a lot of paintings around this building. Like, how did that happen? And how did you connect with the Southside? And you've been here for 23 years. So what keeps you here? How'd you get here? What do you love about this space?
So many years ago when I first moved here, I had a friend named Robbie who moved into this building. This building at the very beginning was possibly 25% occupied. Maybe 30 when I moved in. So it was very different from what it is now, which is wonderful, that it's grown into such an amazing location, actually a famous location. Many people know about Southside now. But Robbie had mentioned that the management was looking for artists to move into the building because they know that artists obviously attract people. And it's, I think, a very smart move that they were doing at that time because they knew that we would be the ones that could be great, marketers for the building. And so when I saw the mission of the building, which originally was to really heighten the arts in the Southside area, to deal with people of need in the Southside area, that was all attracted to me because I was already connected to all of that. And if you'll ask me a question later about that, I can tell you more about the connecting of that. So anyway, I moved in, and my first unit was 101. I was the first artist in what they call the I don't know, the Main Street area.
Yeah.
You know, all of them were empty, and I picked 101 all the way at the end, purposely because I didn't want to be in the main flow of action. I wanted some privacy.
Yeah.
And so then I was already established. You know, I was already representing galleries and things like that, and so I began to use whatever power I had to publicize Southside, and I began to have events in the Main Street area. I had events on the second floor in the atrium area, and then I began, an annual show at the Jeanette Kennedy Gallery. I knew Jeanette. Actually, I spoke to Jeanette about coming here because Jeanette was a high fashion hair designer and dresser for some elite people in the city, and I knew she was connected. So I was trying to talk to people that were connected to bring more connections to the Southside building. So then that's really how I started. I spoke with management. Of course, they took me in, and then I began to use my status in any way that I could to promote it. And we worked hard. I mean, I worked very hard at promoting Southside, especially at the very, very start of this. And then I built a theater here called Euphoria Theater.
Yeah,
and I began a performance with a composer pianist named Seth Simmons. And we did that show for years and years and years. And imagine we would have over 100 people attend that show on a regular basis. We do about 2 shows a month. So, I feel good that I had a hand at the very start, among other people. Obviously, there were many other people here doing the same thing to try to make Southside become a known entity, especially for the south side of town.
Yeah. So tell us about some of the artwork that you've done and around the building and what that represents.
So through the years, I did several murals around the building. For example, right by the famous, coffee place now, Open Bell Coffee. That mural that's there on that wall, that mural I think was done about 20 years ago, and it's called "Park It in the Sky." And so I did a mural that represented a lot of different things that I saw, not only in relation to the building, but also the excitement of the coffee shop, with music and different kinds of people and dreamers and that kind of thing. I also have a piece that I love. It's on the second floor, right as you enter the atrium. The lady in that piece is actually an employee, a person that worked in this building in 1913. Oh. And I found her photograph in one of the black and white archives. And I represented her in connection to 1913 in that mural, wondering what it was like for a woman in 1913, you understand, to work, because the rules were different. Women did not have the rights they have now. I began to wonder if she had a child. I began to wonder about so many things, and of course, knowing that she has already passed on. So that mural encompasses all of that about a person connected directly to Southside and the year 1913 when this building was established.
So you have 2 murals. You have that one and then this one right here, right?
Right. I have those 2 murals. Let me see. Yeah, I have 2 murals in the building. Yeah.
So tell us an interesting story, one of your favorite moments here, living here and working here at Southside.
There have been so many. I mean, I can't even tell you how many events I've done here. I became, I became in love with B.J. Thomas's voice. Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, Hooked on a Feeling. And it's so bizarre, it's a long story, but me and B.J. became friends. I was honored at one of my annual shows, I forget what year it was, when B.J. and Gloria came to my annual art show here at Southside Lamar. And it meant a lot to me because I had been hired by them to do the piece for Liza Minnelli and David Guest. Yeah. When David Guest and Liza Minnelli got married, BJ gave Liza Minnelli the painting as a wedding gift. And then Liza was kind enough to write a letter back, which I have framed, and BJ signed and all of that. So it was wonderful that BJ would take the time to come to an annual show here and be exposed to the building. But I also had, T.D. Jakes has been inside this building. He came to one of the Euphoria shows years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so through the years, it's been interesting. Not that it's about celebrities, but it's cool when you have a celebrity that comes to watch you paint, because obviously it inspires me, and it's wonderful that I can actually have that intimate moment with those people.
Yeah. So, funniest moment.
Funniest moment at Southside? Oh my goodness. Well, there used to be on the very top of the roof at one time, before it was what it is now. There used to
When
be,
it was just the roof, right?
it was just the roof.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you literally walk through some funky kind of stuff back there, which they have totally fixed, and beautiful now and everything. But back then, there used to be 2 hot tubs that were at the entrance of the pool area when you went to the pool, and you could barbecue back there and everything. And of course, like any group of people, you're gonna get silly, at 9 or 10 o'clock at night inside a hot tub.
Yeah.
And so I'm not gonna go into details, but we had some very funny moments inside that hot tub. We didn't realize is that whole hot tub was being totally televised because they have a camera on it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So that's a good memory from way, way, way back.
So, what do you think makes this building so special? Like, or what makes it so special to you, and what keeps you here?
Well, for one, I really highly, highly respect Jack.
And Jack is?
Jack is the man, the developer, who
Yeah.
really not only developed this building, but has transformed the whole area.
He's a great guy.
By not only, putting money and means behind this building to make it happen, but then so much has happened in a 1 or 2 mile radius all around here, right? But I think Jack has a very big heart, and it's really one of my main attractions when I first
Was
thought
Jack?
about coming. Oh yeah, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So Jack to me is he's an interesting person, very humble, but I'm very impressed with his heart for people that are in need, and trying to, develop an area that needed developing when he could have very easily chosen another part of the city. So that's one of the things that attracts me here. But I want to say some things about that, okay? And I want to be understood when I say this. Okay? I'm Cuban.
Yeah.
I have black blood running through my veins, if you know anything about the Cuban. And one of the things that I loved about Southside is that Southside had a high variety going on in this building. We had all sorts of people here. We had highly educated people here, people with incredible jobs and position. We had someone not quite like that, simple people here. We had artists here. We had single, we had married, we had people with dogs, people without dogs. We had people with kids, people without kids. But what I loved about it is that we had a whole mix of people here from different cultures and different places. Yeah. In my opinion, Southside has leaned more towards one area. I don't think that's smart, personally, not because of the culture, because of what that does to a structure. So I'm hoping that the building balances out more, where we have more of a variety of all kinds of people here. I will tell you that if the building was fully Cuban, I'd be the first to move out.
Yeah.
Because nobody would sleep, because all the Cubans would be talking 24 hours a day, like I talk right now. Or if it was all Chinese, or if it was all whatever, what makes this place tick to me and makes it exciting is the combination of so many different kinds of people.
It's like a melting pot.
It's like a melting pot. And what I love about it too is that there's probably no place in the city that's more like New York or Miami or Chicago than Southside Lamar. Because, I hate to say it, Dallas is pretty one-sided, in many areas, right? So I love the fact that we have a place that's mixed up and it's cool,
Yeah.
And I love the variety, because I grew up in a city like Miami that's got tons of variety.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up around many kinds of people, many kinds of food, many kinds of cultures, and you begin to realize as you grow up, hey, you're just one of many people. You know, there's a big world out there with wonderful people and resources that they can bring to the table. So that's just my observation. I mean, I love Southside. I think it's a great melting pot. I'm hoping that it stays that way.
Okay, so here's more of a personal question, and it's like you're a painter. Take us on that journey of how you got to be a painter, and to because some people, they start off drawing or painting, and then they go and get a real job, so to speak, but then it takes a lot of guts to dive into your craft and say, you know what, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, and no matter how much money I get or how much money I don't get or whatever it is, I'm just going to give this my life and I'm going to dedicate. So when was that moment? When did you realize that? And what does that mean?
That's a very good point. I always tell people, if you're going to become an artist for the love of it. Don't ever become an artist for the money or thinking of the fame. Because if you go in that direction, your art's not going to have any worth. I knew from a very young age that I had a gift. Teachers begin to notice it. They begin to realize that in a classroom situation, for whatever reason, this one kid stands out, and so you don't even know it yourself. But as you begin to develop in junior high and high school, so you begin to see that this craft comes very easy for you, in some way. So I knew that I had a gift. And what's so interesting is that from a very, very young age, I knew that I would be a painter. I had no other desire. Now,
So you were painting at a young age?
Oh, yeah. I started drawing since I was a kid.
No, drawing, but then you started painting.
Right, because I also was, well, when I say painting, experimenting with paint.
Got you.
You know what I mean? Elementary school,
Got you.
then in junior high, doing more. High school, even more. But I also went into commercial advertising and design. Okay. I had a great commercial art teacher, and I actually did a cartoon in college about him called Mass. His name was Mr. Mazzucchelli. But as the years began to go by and I began to develop as a human being, I began to realize, no, this is what I want to be. I want to be an artist. Now, I loved music, and I was involved highly in music in not only junior high, but high school through my college years. And I've been singing since I was very young. I even led praise and worship for our congregation at the age of 11. So music has been a part of my background. But I knew what a tough career that is. I think it's even tougher than being a fine artist. So I chose to go into fine art because I knew that I could make a living, and then I could do my music on the side. So then I went, and when I began to realize that I had this gift, I went and studied formally. And I studied fine art. I got a degree. I got my bachelor's of fine art after 4 or 5 years of study. And then let me tell you, I painted in college probably 3 hours a day for 3 years of my life, except Saturday and Sundays. I mean, I had a studio there. I had my final senior art show. But then I still felt like I wasn't good enough. And I did not have my first major exhibition to probably 6 years after I graduated.
Why do you think? Why didn't you think you were good enough?
Well, I think we need to be critical about our own work. I think we need to analyze it. And I would go constantly to museums or galleries, and I would see some artists that would blow me away. And I would compare myself or what I felt I knew about art to some of those, and I felt I'm not even there yet, And through time, it grew. It grew. I felt like I knew more. I felt like I had a better understanding of color, a better understanding of design, layout, composition. And so it just grew, And finally, I felt, okay, I got something to show. I got something to show. I just didn't want to show a bunch of stuff unless I felt like it was really worth looking at.
Gotcha.
So
you were in high school. So you knew you went to college. So when did you dive in? Like after you
So let me tell you what happened. Fascinating enough, because I grew up in Miami and I went to school in a small town in Abilene, Texas.
Abilene, Texas.
Yeah, I went to Abilene. So from Miami to Abilene, it was a bit
Oh,
of
wow.
a bit of a culture shock. Okay, but I loved it because it was West Texas, and I did not understand West Texas, but I get it now, right? And I fell in love with Texas. Actually, I've been here for 35 years or more. But right after college, I landed an incredible job with Eastern Airlines, and it's in Miami. And I had my whole family in Miami, and I had an ill parent. That's a long story that I took care of all my life. My mother was manic depressive schizophrenic. So I decided to go back to Miami, and I worked for Eastern Airlines 8.5 years.
What'd you do for them?
I worked in passenger services.
Okay.
And it was a fantastic experience because I dealt with people. I mean, thousands of people every day. And let me tell you, anyone who has ever worked on a job with the general public, you learn a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You learn, in a job like I had, you can almost look at a person without even speaking anything, because you can almost read them to a T. It's fascinating how that works. And I learned a lot about people those 8.5 years. People from all over the world that would come through Miami International. And then imagine, because I was in passenger services, I got to help incredible celebrities. I mean, you know, if I tell you some of the stories of celebrities, you would just laugh. You know, Rod, I just helped a lot of people. But after that job, I went ahead, Eastern began to have problems and they were going under. And I landed a job in Amarillo, Texas in corporate design.
So how old were you?
So now I'm, let's see, probably left college, 21? So now I'm 28, 29. I'm about 29. I jump and I go to Amarillo. From Amarillo, I'm there for 2 years, and that company has some problems, and I end up coming back to Dallas because my mother is diagnosed with breast cancer, and my brother is here, and I decided to come help. So then I worked for Dallas Air Rapid Transit as a graphic designer for 4 years. You know, I did the first HOV poster, not to brag, but you know, when the HOV was first introduced, I still have that. But that was also a fascinating experience because I was dealing with corporate design, and I did corporate design in Amarillo, and I was painting on the side and all that. And I was just putting all of my paintings away. I wasn't showing them, I was putting them away. And then I got to tell you a fascinating story. You probably have heard the name Nancy Hammond. Nancy Hammond was one of the big entrepreneurs in our city who donated millions to the DMA, Nancy and Jake and many other people. And while I'm at DART, I read an article about this woman receiving the Lintz Award. I had no idea what the Lintz Award was. And as I read about this fascinating lady, one of the things they asked her
What is the Lintz Award?
The Lintz Award is, so the Lintz Award is given to an individual in the city, not only who has probably given millions to help many areas of the city, but also has been actively involved. So it's a very, very high honor for the city of Dallas. And this woman had just received it. I didn't know who she was. So as I'm reading about her, in that particular article, they ask her, what is one of the favorite places you ever went to in your life? And she says, Havana, Cuba. Well, I was stunned by that, a woman that's traveled the world. And after I finished reading the article, I almost had a revelation that said, write her a letter. And so I got on my computer and I wrote her a letter. And I said, Miss Hammond, you don't know me, but I want to tell you how much I appreciate the $20 million you get to the DMA, because through that I'm able to go see these wonderful shows. And you fascinated me with Cuba, since I'm Cuban. And all I want to do is ask you if there's any way you could open a door for me, non-monetarily, any kind of door. I've got my degree in fine art, and I aspire to be a full-time painter. Well, I sent that letter, special delivery for her to sign. Within a week, her assistant calls me. And she wants to put me in contact with a man named Murray Smithers. I did not realize at the time that Murray handled her personal estate in art and also was a big voice in the city. And Murray comes from a little duplex where I have one couch and one chair. Yeah. And he pulls up in his convertible Volvo there, his white Volvo, gets out, walks in, says, hello, I'm here on behalf of Nancy Hammond. I set him down in my one chair, and he says, may I see your work? And of course, I've got it all under the couch, and I'm pulling out all the stuff out of the couch for this man.
Yeah.
Okay, just picture, right? I'm laying it all out. Let me tell you, I'm funny about stuff. That man looked at it, very quiet, and then these were his exact words. Son, you have a lot of talent, and all you have to do is paint. Exact words. I said, well, thank you very much. Gives me his card. I'd love to advise you. And he leaves. I took that as a direct revelation that this was my moment. I mean, I didn't look back, and I quit art the very next day.
Oh, wow.
And I go into my art full time with advice from Murray. I land the first gallery was the L.A. Thompson Gallery right on McKinney Avenue in a great location. And then Anne and I became very good friends, and she sold a lot of work for me. Then I had another gallery in the Sanders District. I had a gallery in Breckenridge. I had a gallery in Miami.
Oh, Breckenridge.
Yeah, Colorado. And
Yeah.
so it just began to explode. And then I had my first museum show at the Grace.
So let me ask you a question real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
Have you always painted in oils, or were you doing acrylic first, and then you moved to oils, or what?
I began in acrylics.
Okay.
I don't know if that's wise or not now, but back then it seemed simpler. I hated the way they would dry so fast.
Yeah.
There's no mercy, kind of like watercolors. Then I began to do my underpainting in acrylic, and I would do my painting with oils on top of that. So I began to shift. Then I fell so in love with oils that I left acrylics behind. But don't get me wrong, I still use acrylics for a concept or a design or whatever. But mostly I work in oils. I've been working in oils for many years now.
So why not acrylic? Like
Acrylic
versus
to me, like for example, the famous Indian painter Fritz Scholder was a person that had a huge influence in my work. And I actually own one of his works. It took me years to be able to purchase one of his pieces, but I bought a small piece. Fritz Scholder to me was an incredible colorist. He mostly worked in acrylics. And I was always very surprised over that because of some of the stuff that he was able to achieve. The thing about acrylics, even though you can use mediums and everything, you have a very short period of time before that paint is dried. So you don't have time to, analyze it. You don't have time to mess with it. You don't have time to change it. It's going to dry. With oils, see, you have lots of time to think it over. Not only that, but oils are translucent, where acrylics are very flat. So when you use oils, when you do your underpainting, whatever color you put on top of that, it's going to show through that oil. Yeah. And I thought it gave it a much more enrichment for me, in color. So just things, that you learn as you go.
But it's not quality, right?
Huh?
It's not quality. Do you think oils are
no.
better quality than acrylic?
No, absolutely
it's just
not.
preference.
It's preference. I know incredible artists like Fritz Scholder who have used acrylic for years. So, or use tempera. I can imagine using tempera. And I'm talking tempera with the egg yolk,
Do you use oil
pigments.
pastels?
I've used oil pastels. I love oil pastels.
How do they dry? Do you put something over, you spray them?
No. So what I do with my oil pastels, whenever I use oil pastels, I get my linseed oil and my fast drying medium, which is mixed together. I dip my oil stick in the oil.
Okay.
So now when I put it on the canvas or the paper, see, it's going to dry just like my paint because of the medium. Yeah. So it just dries automatically right into my painting, just like if it was a direct oil stick. An oil tube.
So if you do something in oil, you have to go over it with the linseed oil? Or what do you spray over it?
No, I never spray my work. The only time I spray my work is if I work on paper. And not even oil, so I don't spray it. Only if it's pastel, pencil, or charcoal or something like that.
Okay. So I'll talk to you about that afterwards. Yeah. So you said you had your first show at the Grace? Right.
So my first major exhibition was at the Grace Museum in Abilene, and it's an established national museum. I did a show called A Common Thread. And you have to understand that I've always had a compassion for the poor because of our own experience. I don't know how much you know about my journey. The Communist Party stole everything we had, and we came on a boat.
Yeah.
And we had to start with nothing. And those years were very difficult. My father dies, and my mother's sick, and just a lot of difficulties, in those years. But anyway, so then I've had a compassion for that. So, I did my show about the poor, my very first exhibition. I traveled around the country, not only documenting some interesting people that were poor, but also had a personal relationship with some very poor people here in the city, which I got to bring to the show, and their portraits were in the show. So that was my first major exhibition called A Common Thread, and it was at the museum for 9.5 weeks. 9.5 months. No, excuse me, 9.5 weeks. 9.5 weeks.
So speaking of poor and things like that, I don't know if you remember where I actually met you.
No.
I actually met you when I was doing art. You remember the Dallas Street Art Project?
I do remember.
I met you at that facility.
Wow.
Because I was doing my art then, but I had stopped.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I
remember now.
So I met you doing art, and then I stopped doing art. So then I show you my art recently, and you're like, "Man, keep doing it." But I met you.
That's amazing.
As an artist.
Isn't that something? Is that not
You
something?
forgot about that, huh?
I forgot about that because
the Dallas Street Art Project.
Ain't that amazing?
Yeah.
Because I do remember us meeting years and years and years ago, and I had forgotten that memory of our first meeting. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Dude, how cool is that?
Yeah.
And look where you are now, dude.
Yeah,
It's just wonderful, brother.
That's great.
That's wonderful, man.
So, anyways, so continue.
Yeah, so I could write a book about what I consider. I'm highly connected spiritually.
Yeah.
I believe God has laid out a path for me, and I can easily see it. I can see the dots connecting, and so I ask God for open doors. I ask God for wisdom. I ask God to help me with my art, the things that I paint. I made a vow to God that I will not go into the darkness with my art. I will not go into the crudeness with my art, even though...
What does that mean?
What that means is there's a lot of artists that I think are good artists. There's a lot of stuff going on in New York and some of the major cities where they're just crude, just vulgar. Whether it has to do with sexuality or it has to do with words that they actually put into their paintings, or just crudeness in the sense that is a distortion of the human form in ways that is just gruesome. For example, people that are doing the body cast and all the guts are spilled out into the floor. I have no desire whatsoever to go into that area. For one, because I don't want my art to be about sensationalism. And a lot of artists choose that to become famous. Like the guy who peed on the crucifix. He knew he would receive international attention. I have no desire for that. So my pact with God was, I'll paint towards the light. I want to paint
towards the
things
light
that are positive, things that are good. Don't get me wrong. I've dealt in paintings with fear. I dealt with painting with, aching and stuff like that. But what I mean by the darkness is I'm not going to go into complete profanity, sexual connotation that's just going crazy. I'm just going to do that. Doesn't mean that my imagination I cannot go there. It just means that I've chosen not to go in that direction. So that's important to me, because by the time I'm dead, I want people to look back and go, hey, you know what? That guy painted stuff that was positive. He didn't have to deal in the darkness or, sometimes satanic. There's a lot of satanic work. I've been approached.
Yeah.
I've actually been approached about doing satanic work and selling it to make money. There's no way on the planet I would go in that direction. I've actually had people approach me about that. Can you imagine? So I'm not into that at all. I want to stay away from the darkness. I want to be in the light.
You used a word that, or a phrase that I always talk about, like open door.
Open door.
Open door. I believe like every opportunity that I've ever received in my life, it was not anything that I had to hustle.
Right.
I had to sell myself. It was a door. Either you walked in it or you didn't. And that was the thing, and that's what I say. I say God is the God in my life. He's always been for everything, like an open door. Even me being at Southside is an open door. It was like, okay, I forget the guy's name, but I always wanted to be at Southside. Remember Samuel Bowie, the photographer?
I do.
So I came over here with Sam, and I fell in love with it. But back then I was broke, busted, and disgusted.
I love that. Broke, busted, and disgusted. I got to remember that phrase, dude.
But I always wanted to be here, and then it was just an open door. It was no force, no trickery or anything like that. It was just an open door. So I went down and I got down there in the artist quarters.
That's so great.
And then I actually wanted to be in the artist quarters, but then the leasing office that they were supposed to be in they were going to move it in my loft, is what they were saying. They were thinking about it. They were kind of unclear.
Which one was your loft?
107.
Oh, 107. Right there. Is it by the bridge or near the bridge?
Yes, right there, right by the bridge. Because it was me, and then on the other side of the bridge was Kelsey.
Right.
Kelsey Heimerman.
Right.
Heimerman.
Right. You know that Billy Crockett was in that space for a while.
Billy
the
Crockett.
Famous singer-songwriter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Very successful in Austin, but he was in that space for a while. But anyway.
So before we close, like, what do you think the future, what's your vision? Like, what do you see Southside being?
I hope, and I say this with respect, I hope Southside has not lost the vision that it began with, of the arts being on the top of the list.
I don't think so, because I was talking to Jack, like last year, and it's still there.
I think that's very good because, as you will know, the arts are extremely powerful. The arts connect with the mind, soul, body of a human being, the inner person. And when you connect with that, you got some power going on, if you can make that happen. So the arts to me are extremely, extremely important. They're extremely influential. They can affect in so many ways, as you can well see, So that's one thing that I really hope Southside continues on that path, and I'm so glad to hear what you said. I would also love more variety, back to what we were, I think, some years back. I would like it to be people of all sorts here. That's just my opinion. It may not. It may end up changing. But even within that change, I hope that there's a variety of businesses and creatives and of all sorts. That give us the power of what this building is about. I hope sometime down the road, I think it'd be awesome. I've talked to them, I mentioned it through the years. I think a great series, television series could be done about this place. Because if you just think about, if you delved into some of the lives of the people here, if you delved into some of the experiences that have happened here, if you delved into the history of the building, if you delved into so many things.
See, that's what this podcast is.
Oh, that's what this is.
That's what this podcast is.
Fantastic. See, and so I think there's so much here that's so different from the rest of the city. That's so exciting. It's just so exciting. So I'm hoping that grows, maintains, develops more and more and more for years to come, long after you and I are gone. Or put it this way, long after I'm gone. You're going to be around for a long time.
I'm not leaving.
I'm an old man. I'm about to die.
No.
I'm 66. I'm getting close to 70.
Man, you're still young.
But that's my dream for Southside. That it really becomes and continues as a landmark for the creators.
Is there anything you want to say? Let people know how they can view your work.
Well, if you want to Google me, the best way to
speak to them in this camera right there.
Here. Thank you. So if you want to look me up, put in Rolando Diaz, DIAZ /artist, and you're going to get information on there. That's probably the best way. So, it's been wonderful.
Thank you, Rolando.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, great to see you.
Thank you guys for tuning in. See you next time.
Southside 457.
Southside 457.